This is Hamid, the lost village before the Sahara swallows the road. A place where time slows down and the wind has more stories than the people who live here. I want to tell you a story about how I ended up here, but more importantly, about someone who was born here, born in the desert, and who helped me see this place not as empty, but full of life. But this story doesn't start here. It starts hundreds of years ago, before the roads and before the borders. And somehow, one of those stories led me here, to Hamid, the lost village before the Sahara, a place where the road ends and a real journey begins. And this desert, well, over the years, it slowly became an obsession of mine. These endless dunes and crumbling kasbahs.
So as you can see now we're in a proper sandstone.
So I wanted to visit it in as much depth as I can. But I also wanted to find out who lived here. When, why, and what happened. These questions eventually brought me here, to Hamid. This is where I met Mohammed. I met him years ago, on my first trip here. Just a young man with a quiet strength and a dream bigger than the desert, to show his home to foreigners. He told me about the desert and how he grew up here as a nomad. So the next week we traveled together. We packed our camels and set off into the Sahara. I got to meet his grandfather, who still lived out there, all alone in the dunes. He told me about the days when their tribe followed the seasons, and about how it all changed. The whales dried up, the sand creeped in, and the desert got hotter, harsher and emptier. And eventually they had to move to the village. But he never gave up on that dream, to guide people into the desert, to share the silence, the stories and the sky. So I helped him start an agency. Nothing big, just an idea, a path and a name. And this October we're running our first workshop together. A journey for people who want more than just a tour, for people who want to walk back into time. But in order for us to understand what this land once was, I had to visit again. But before showing you this incredible adventure, I want to give a quick thank you to my friends over at Artlist for making this trip and this video possible. If you've been watching for a while, you know that Artlist and I go way back. We've done several projects together and they've been my go-to source for music, sound effects and even LUTs for 5 years now. They have a library with tens of thousands of songs, tens of thousands of sound effects and thousands of LUTs, stock footage, and they even have an AI video generator, AI voiceover generator and AI image generator. For this video, for example, I wanted to switch between songs every 30 seconds or so. I think this works really well for a documentary piece. I also wanted the music to feel spacious, mysterious, calm, but also intense at some parts. And one of my favorite features is that I can just use the music and not worry about licensing. And all of the music in this video is from Artlist. So if you like what you hear, you can use the link in the description to get 2 months off for free. So we packed up our camels once more, but this time we had a mission: to reach the biggest dune of the Sahara Desert in Morocco. A journey that would take us 5 days. Enough time to go truly back into time. Back 70 years, when the last nomadic families still roamed freely, following clouds and ancient instinct. Back 700 years, when camel caravans carried salt across golden empires and mapped the desert with their stories. Back 7,000 years, when this region was grassland, full of life, and further still, 70 million years ago, when this wasn't a desert at all. It was a sea, a warm, shallow ocean teeming with life, long before the first dunes rose, long before the silence.
Mohammed, how does it feel to have your own camels now and to be hiking with your own company and tourists?
Yeah, it's very good, because the desert concept is about freedom, to be free. You know your camel and you know how to trek with them and you trust them.
The last time I trekked with Mohammed, he had actually stopped working as a guide. But that trip, he made an exception for me. And after, I convinced him to give trekking another try. And since, he had multiple trips a month. mostly photographers and adventurers looking for a once-in-a-lifetime journey, which then allowed him to also get his own camels. 10,000 years ago, the Sahara was green. Lakes stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Grasslands fed antelope and elephants. And the cave walls, they tell the story. And all around here, you will find thousands of engravings and paintings. Herds of cattle, women dancing, boats floating across what is now open desert. And the people here were not just surviving, they were thriving. Herders, potters, spiritualists and artists. And it was not the edge of the world, it was the center of it. But then, slowly, the skies changed. Around 5,000 years ago, the rain stopped. The Sahara wasn't destroyed in a single moment, but it faded, grain by grain. And the grasslands, they shrank, the lakes dried, and the people adapted, or moved.
How many camels are there?
More than 100. Because we are mixing with other nomads.
Some traveled south towards the Sahel. Others moved with the shrinking water, becoming nomadic.
Through my experience in the desert, like my late experience, I had to meet people like Kai, who opened me to the world, like whom I had like deep conversations and like different understanding from like what I have before. So it's too interesting to me to find out that even though we live in different places in the world, we still have the same feelings and we could have the same understanding also. Like when you have deep conversation, you find that we have the same fears, the same interest, and like maybe the same passion. So this is like one of the most important things about traveling and meeting people. It's understanding that we are similar.
And this is when the ancestors of the Berbers and Tuareg began shaping the desert into a home. And they started surviving in the desert by designing their lives around it. The Tuareg, who are also known as the blue men of the desert due to their deep indigo dye that stains their robes and skin, created vast trade networks stretching from Mali to Morocco. Their caravans carried salt, gold and knowledge, navigating by stars, by taste and by memory. And they had no need for written maps, because the landscape itself was their library. And to the Tuareg, their stories are their archive. A camel route can be mesmerized through a poem, a family lineage through a song, and entire histories are passed down by poets, musicians, historians that trusted to keep time alive. And so, the Sahara became the backbone of one of the richest trade networks in the world. At its height, Timbuktu wasn't a myth. It was the center of wealth, science, and Islamic scholarship. And the Dra Valley, where I'm traveling now, was a key stop along this route. But then everything changed. In the 19th century, French and Spanish forces began carving up North Africa, and Tuareg rebellions rose and fell. Maps were redrawn, languages were outlawed, and slowly the camel gave way to the truck. But Mohammed's grandfather was born before the independence, before the flags changed, before the radios arrived. And he once guided a caravan of 30 camels from Tamanrasset to Hamid, a journey of nearly 2 months. He taught Mohammed the names of stars, the taste of different winds, and the sound of sand that signals a storm. But when the French left, They left behind a world that was harder to return to. And today, much of the Sahara is no longer crossed. It is bypassed. But still, some carry the memory, not as a performance, but as a way of being. Mohammed grew up here. He knows when the moon will rise. He knows stories that aren't in books, because they were never meant to be. They were meant to be told and walked. Every night, Mohammed builds a fire, the way his grandfather taught him. But not for warmth, because the desert is still holding onto the day's heat, but for the ritual of gathering. He tells me about the stars, not their names in astronomy books, but their names in Arabic. See that constellation? The Berbers call it the camel. When it reaches that position, it's exactly 2 a.m., he said. The desert taught his people that nothing lasts forever. Not empires, not abundance, not even suffering. But some things endure. Stories, stars, the human capacity to adapt, to find home in the most unlikely places. He told me that some of the sand traveled here from the Atlas Mountains, and some of it came from as far as Chet, 2,000 miles away, carried by winds that blow at 25,000 feet above us. The Sahara is constantly migrating. Every year, 182 million tons of dust blows from this desert across the Atlantic Ocean to feed the Amazon rainforest. The phosphorus in this sand literally fertilizes life on another continent. And the mathematics of this place are staggering. The Sahara is larger than the entire United States. If it were a country, it would be the 5th largest country in the world. Yet only 20% of it is sand dunes. The rest is gravel, rock, and these hidden fossil beds.
So we've now arrived to the new lunch spot, and that was very intense. I even had like the full white dress, but I was still very warm and completely sweating.
You could walk 200 kilometers in a straight line without any instruments. He read the angles of shadows, the patterns of wind-carved rocks. He knew that certain beetles only come out when you are within 50 kilometers of water.
You can go down here. There is bones and pottery. So it remains of a house, because there used to be a tribe that made handcraft and agriculture long time ago. Ismail would show some like pieces.
He told me about the heat lighting flickering on the horizon. Dry lightning. No rain will come from those clouds. And what I discovered later was that hot air rises from the sand, forming clouds at 40,000 feet. And those clouds seed rain all over Europe. And Mohammed also told me how to read the dunes. When one curves, the slip face is always 34 degrees, because the sand cannot hold a steeper angle. His grandfather knew this without knowing the world of physics. He knew that the dunes sing when the sand avalanches down at exactly that angle. And as we climbed, the dune hummed beneath our feet a low, otherworldly frequency. Scientists call it booming sand. The grain size has to be perfectly uniform, the moisture content exactly right. People used the singing dunes as landmarks. Each one has a different note. This one sounds like a low cello, and the big dune near Urshagaga sounds like a trumpet. This October, Mohammed and I will bring others here. Those who want to travel in time, people ready to walk through 70 million years in a single week. And Mohammed is a guide here. He is a time traveler, carrying forward the memory of every version of this place.